Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Cable. I'm your host, Brad Randall, and today we have the privilege of being joined by Bree Maki. She's the director of the Office of Broadband Development in Minnesota. Bree, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I mean, it's great to have you on, and it's not every day we talk to a director of a state broadband office. If you could take a few minutes to introduce yourself to our audience, we'd be super grateful.
Oh, well, sure. Yes. So, as you stated, Executive Director at the Office of Broadband Development in Minnesota. The office has been around since 2013, so a pretty established office. We sit in the Department of Employment and Economic Development at the state of Minnesota, which is a great place to be when you're coordinating economic development, which we understand broadband does, as well as the workforce development. So leading a team of 10 strong but mighty folks here in the state, and I was appointed in October of 2022 by Governor Tim Walz. So happy to be here. Prior to that, I worked for Senator Tina Smith and Senator Franken, and prior to that, did some county government work for many years.
Okay, so that you have a background that is in politics, and how did you kind of get interested in communications as well?
Sure. So I would say I don't necessarily think that though it's politics, it's more policy and what's in the best
See.
interest for the state of Minnesota. And I really value my work is going out and understanding the needs of the state and the partners that we serve. So as much as it feels, when I say all the words, it's politics, but that's not how I view the job. And I hope that anybody who's worked with me feels the same way.
Now, Minnesota, as you said, thank you for that. And Minnesota has a long history when it comes to their legacy with those smaller providers, which, by the way, are kind of our bread and butter here at Broadband Communities. And I'm talking about those tier two, tier three providers. And as you said, the office, it dates back to 2013, I believe. So, how does Minnesota leverage that legacy, going into this BEAD rollout?
That's an excellent question because I would like to say that that legacy is what created the Office of Broadband Development. Long before that was even created, there was a governor's broadband task force and mapping that was done since 2008 in Minnesota. And that really led the foundation of what was needed and the foresight of planning out what broadband would look like. And that included all of the advocates, the different ISPs that we have. So, our Minnesota Telecom Alliance, our cable, our WISPA, as well as local county, anybody you can think of that really advocated for governor. That task force continues to play a strong role in making recommendations to the governor and the legislature each year. It is a diverse group of 15 people on there. But back to your question is really it was them all coming together, working together to create an office, compromises, sticking us in Department of Employment and Economic Development. Some states are in, regulatory agencies or different components within their state government. But we don't do this work. Like we can help facilitate the dollars, the research, the data, the mapping, but really it's our internet service providers that are going out there and investing in their communities with our partnership. We have some small little cable companies that have 200 members. We have family telecom providers that are generations that evolved from telephone to broadband. And we have our cable providers, as I said, big and small. So this isn't anything new, working with all tiers. But yes, the second and third tiers are really in greater Minnesota where we leverage what we need to get everybody served at this point.
Now, Minnesota is a big state geographically, but it's relatively small when it comes to population, so it must be a little bit like a small town in the industry. Um, how are you making sure that those folks that invested in the state early on aren't getting drowned out in the BEAD process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, the BEAD process has been really complicated. And I guess there's an even step back is the state has been investing its own dollars for many years. So those providers are working with us on line extension grants, in our greater Minnesota communities where you said not necessarily dense areas, and very rural. So they need that public-private partnership in order to advance broadband. We also have statutory language that includes fiber. But we do have state grants going on right now that they're very involved in. BEAD is and also for them. There have been some that have been very reluctant just because of the uncertainties. I had direction from the legislator to build BEAD at the start as closely to border in our programs as we possibly can within the parameters of what our federal partners required of us.
So you talk about some of the complications with BEAD, and it's not lost on us. Also, we've kind of heard this language of providers will get one bite of the apple, and you better not come back if you're part of BEAD. Are folks getting discouraged from participating and just saying, hey, I would rather not?
No, I mean, I think we are hearing that. I mean, especially those providers that are using USF funding. There's just a level of uncertainty. I would also state that, again, I bring up the statutory language because within BEAD and the tech neutral approach, some of these locations are going to be served with broadband to the definition and the requirements of, again, NTIA, but not for the state. And so, there's still a gap there. And whether it's Reconnect or a different program, because we know all these federal programs have different, rules and requirements on how they build, that is definitely something that is a possible risk for our providers that do want to advance broadband and continue to build up those capacities and also meet statutory language. So I think you're absolutely right. There is a lot of concern about if I do take this, what does that look like? Um, if in the future an opportunity comes or what we are doing for service in BEAD isn't matching up what the state really sees as what people need and deserve.
Bree, kind of mentioning the elephant in the room here, we all know Minnesota has been in the headlines. And in the interest of, calling it like it is, the state has been targeted for immigration enforcement and things like that. Have you seen that in broadband at all from the federal government when it comes to your duties?
Yeah, I mean, not yet, and I hope not. I mean, what we do with broadband is we build infrastructure. And one of the things that we have done really well for the state of Minnesota is when we build something, we're going out to every BSL, we're doing speed checks, we're making sure that what we build is what is supposed to be built, and before we make that final payment to our ISPs. So that field validation is huge. We administered $130 million in capital projects dollars and worked very closely with Treasury. And it's been an incredible relationship. And it's also expanded broadband to thousands of people. We take our job, very seriously. I think sometimes our grantees are like another, we ask for all of our bills, even if they're, payments that are in place by milestones. We're doing spot checks, all of those things, and everybody, I think, that works in our office. At the end goal is to get people broadband, and we want to do that as efficiently and as effectively as we can. I would also just say that in most of our grant rounds, we are serving more than we even granted out. So more BSLs end up getting served as we're working with our ISPs to pick up locations, or we have money coming back that we can reallocate out. So we're a very conservative office. We've always taken only the administrative dollars we need. because we want to put it right back into communities. And selfishly, most of my team is in greater Minnesota and also want to see broadband. I don't have broadband defined as the state does yet, if that's any consolation. It's something that we're all invested in, and I work closely with the legislature. I work closely with our partners. We want to be held accountable for what we are given the responsibility to do.
Well, that's great to hear.